What can you tell me about
20 years, where we at Apple, the Beatles, were always going to do the definitive thing on the Beatles, because there were so many stories coming out about, you know, well, about anything you care to mention. There's like millions of false stories. John gave me a painting and then put his foot through it because he was annoyed at me. It just isn't true, you know. He never did give me a painting, and he certainly didn't put his foot through it, therefore. And what you want to do is you kind of get a feeling of like, let's put the story straight, you know, let's get me, Ringo and George together, and John, because this is an old project, and let's all talk about it, let's set the record straight. Well, as you know, John died, and that kind of put that kind of together contribution out of the way for quite a while. But it's still, now we're still talking now of me, George and Ringo, maybe sitting around doing some reminiscing and saying, oh, you know, so-and-so said we did that. Well, here's the real story. Go to it, Ring. And he'll tell really what happened, you know. And we could put a lot of stories straight. There's some other interesting aspects. It could be quite a good film, number one. We could be in it as narrators and stuff, be interesting. We might even do some new music. We were thinking of like getting a great sequence together, and then we need some incidental music, so then the three of us would sit down and play together. It gives us an excuse.
We're back in the USSR project. What can you tell me about that?
Immediately that was released, we did think, okay, well, the obvious thing to do is just pop over to Moscow and do a show and stuff. At that time, it happened to be winter, and they said, nobody comes to Russia at this time of year, man. You know, just logistically, apparently it's real difficult to do. So you've got to kind of wait for the springtime, apparently.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, next year I'd like to try that. I'd like to go over just kind of, without getting too heavy politically, because, you know, someone from the West going over to them, I think the hand of friendship is never a bad thing. Plus, you know, one of the great things about all of that Cold War period, from the Beatles to now the Glasnost, Gorbachev period, was that we always heard that they were bootlegging our stuff. Well, black marketing it, not bootlegging it. They were actually, people were getting Beatle records. And with the release of that USSR record that you mentioned, what happened was I met a couple of guys who were like writers from the big paper over there, Izvestia or TASS or whatever it is, one of the big agencies. And it was great because they were kind of my age, although they were probably KGB guys. Someone pointed out to me they don't let people out who aren't in the KGB, you know, not on this kind of a mission anyway. But it was interesting to talk to them. Instead of the kind of spy and James Bond kind of thing, I was talking to them saying, well, what were you doing while you were growing up? You know, you were in Russia then. He said, oh man, we were listening to the Beatle records. He said, I used to have a bass. I used to pretend I was you, Paul. You know, and these are kind of guys that you normally would kind of look, you know, twice at and think, hello. But you find out they're just like us, of course. And you kind of knew all along. And, you know, they come over here, they buy the Levi's and rock on. I mean, I think there's a great reason for hope with that. You know, they're not this strange race of people that we've come to believe they are. They're just like us, you know. Only Ruskies. Big deal.
Us only.
Well, you know them better than most people, because you ice hockey, you've got them over here, you're smacking hell out of them all the time.
Yeah, they're finding it tougher now.
Are they?